The Second Amendment is an American ideal our government must ensure we have. It states, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed," meaning that Americans have the right to gather as a militia against the government if they see fit, and that individuals have the right to own weapons for their own protection.
During the Revolutionary period, the British used soldiers to oppress colonists. The colonists were not allowed to have their own militia while under the rule of Great Britain. When the U.S. gained their independence, it was included in the Bill of Rights to ensure citizens could create their own militias and use weapons in the case of threat, or if the government becomes tyrannical. This was debated heavily because the Anti-Federalists feared that if the government had all the power over arms and regulating a militia, the American citizens would not be able to protect themselves.
Amendment there. And a lot of people don't know the reason that it's there. Because I hear people saying, you don't need this kind of weapon to hunt deers. The Second Amendment is not about deer hunting. The Second Amendment is about the people's right and ability to protect themselves.
It's also about a militia as well.
It's about being able to help in case of a foreign invasion, being able to help our forces, but also being able to defend themselves against an overly aggressive government.
Yes, but I mean, we're not...
The limits to what weapons are classified under the Second Amendment has been debated throughout our history, and there has been some legislation to regulate certain guns and gun rights. For example, in McDonald versus Chicago, it was upheld that the Second Amendment applies to all states, so citizens in Chicago have the right to possess guns. The Brady Bill, passed in 1993, required that anyone buying a handgun must also go through a background check. The Supreme Court decision of District Columbia versus Heller upheld that people can have guns for protection, but with certain weapons there would be a wait period of 5 days till somebody can obtain the weapon. The Background Check Completion Act helped prospective gun owners, stating gun sales will proceed if the background check is not completed in the span of 72 hours, which was a loophole to the...
I actually support background checks. I support the fact that, for example, if you've committed a crime, it's reasonable that for a period of time you may lose your right to own a gun. No difference if you violate the laws of motor vehicles, you lose your license for a while. So we know that if for example, if you've stalked somebody, if you have a history of violence, it's okay to lose your rights for a period of time. You would have to petition the court to get them back. So I definitely believe in that for people that have severe mental issues, it's okay to, and that's why background checks are important, because there has to be reasonable controls, and I think there are. One of the issues would be state by state. Some states are tougher on background checks than others, but we do have a national background check system that's getting better.
The SHARE Act reduced restrictions on silencers and oppressors accredited to shooting sports such as fishing and hunting. The root of many of the recent gun debates is the rise of mass shootings, many of which occur at schools. These include Columbine, Sandy Hook, Pulse Nightclub, Las Vegas, and Parkland High School. Following Sandy Hook, President Barack Obama called for tighter gun legislation and renewed a ban on assault weapons. Following Las Vegas and Pulse Nightclub in Orlando, there was a ban put in place on bump stocks, which is an accessory that elevates a semi-automatic assault rifle to a fully automatic assault rifle.
I think the big question, or the big number that everybody should know, is probably about 393 million. That's how many guns there are in the United States right now. That's more guns than there are men, women, and children. So there really is no ability to confiscate or restrict law-abiding citizens from having guns. So what we have to do is have honest conversations about the protection, the reasons why we have the Second Amendment. This classwork that you're doing is great because students are going to see both sides of the issue, and both sides of the issue are important. So when you have the NRA, when you have March for Our Lives, and they have competing impeding protests or demonstrations or get-togethers. The law enforcement is often the vehicle that keeps these ideas open. We are there to protect both groups. We don't get to take sides. We don't want to take sides in the discussion. So what we do is we facilitate these discussions by allowing these two groups to come together to protest, to speak, and to communicate to the public.
Recently, the school shooting in Florida has sparked much controversy over gun control. The students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School have formed the group March for Our Lives. They are proponents for gun control, such as proposing legislation for wait periods, increased background checks, increased training and education, limits on semi-automatic rifles, and mental evaluation. The March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. on March 24, 2018 had a turnout of about 200,000 people and 800 sibling protests.
After shooting, the American people now see one thing they all have in common: the weapons. Politicians, either represent the people or get out. The people demand a law banning the sale of assault weapons. The people demand we prohibit the sale of high-capacity magazines. The people demand universal background checks. Stand for us or beware, the voters are coming.
Our opposing interest group of March for Our Lives is the National Rifle Association. The NRA is an interest group that advocates for gun rights for Americans. The NRA states that its mission is to protect the gun rights of all people so everyone has the ability to protect themselves.
We're willing to use a firearm to defend our families. But the media will never tell those stories. If a mom puts a gun to the face of a home-invading thug and makes him run for his life, the story gets buried. But if she's unarmed and murdered, the cameras will be at the scene before the police. It's time for moms like me to speak out.
The NRA, I believe, is a great institution. It's actually an institution about liberty and the rights of American citizens to bear arms. I'm proud when I ran for office to have gotten the NRA endorsement. And then March for Our Lives, was that the kids from Parkland?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, first of all, it's great that we have the freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. And everybody has the right to their opinion, to organize, to have public displays, to promote their opinion. I think that some of the anti-gun marches are misguided. But I think it's also good to have conversations about, future.
So one of the main things that law enforcement and I think what citizens need to know is, since there are 393 million guns or so out there right now, we need to be concerned about how people are going to protect themselves. So if we don't allow citizens to own guns, law-abiding citizens to own their own guns to protect themselves in their own homes, or let's say, for instance, you have a concealed gun permit, then all you're doing is allowing the only ones to be armed are the criminals. That's bad. It's plenty, and there's countless number of cases across the United States. All you have to do is Google or search them, of law-abiding citizens protecting themselves, and the only thing that saved them was the ownership of that gun. So I think we have to abide by the Second Amendment, allow it to continue to happen, and or continue to let law-abiding citizens own guns for their own